Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. Today we're going to talk about the Big Read in Ephrata, and with us to talk about that, Penny Talbert. You're from the Ephrata Public Library, and you also are the Community Relations Coordinator, right? And joining us too is Phil Eisenman, and you are an oral historian.
That's right.
And you were involved with this last year. This is the third year for the Big Read in Ephrata, right? For those who are not familiar with this, give us a little background on what this really is all about.
Well, the Big Read is an initiative by the National Endowment of the Arts, and every year they put out a call for proposals from communities all over the United States, and you can choose select a book from their list. So you can't pick your own book, but they have a list of great books that you can pick from, and then you provide a programming suggestion, like how you would use the money if it was given to you.
Okay.
And then they read all the applications and decide who gets it.
So I guess right now, since this started, and it's been a few years this has been going on, there's been about 800 grants across the country?
Right.
And the grant money is anywhere from $2,500 to $20,000?
To $20,000.
Yeah. Now, how did you go about picking this particular book? And tell me about this one.
Well, it's interesting because this is a partnership with the school district. And I wanted to make sure that it was something that the teachers were going to use in the curriculum, so I actually let the teachers pick this year, the school teachers and the librarians at the school.
Okay.
And they came to me with a list of a couple of books that they thought would work really well in their curriculum. And then I looked at them and said, what can we do as far as programming goes in the public library? And this is the one that we decided on.
Okay. And the book is The Things They Carried. What is that about?
Well, The Things They Carried is actually a collection of short stories that reads like a book, but you can read them individually as well. And it is Tim O'Brien's fictional account of the Vietnam War, although he was in Vietnam, and some people tend to think, just like last year's book, that this might be very personal. It is a fictional account of several men that were in a company in the Vietnam War.
Okay. Now, Phil, you've got a lot of connections with all this. You're an oral historian, and you've been involved in the library. Tell us more.
Well, what my interest is to try to tie these things into the community.
Okay.
Now, she was talking about Tim O'Brien's book. I've been interviewing veterans who were in Vietnam and people who also did 1W service. These would be conscientious objectors from our Anabaptist community. And what their responses were to that period, and they've read the book. One thing that's interesting, and I'm kind of throwing it out, is the reaction to this book has been vastly different. Some of the people say, well, this is a Dove book. This is against the war. Some people who have read it for this have said, I refuse to read it. It was too pro-war. So this is a kind of book that you can look into it, and it ties directly into your own period, your own response to the period. What happens with history is history changes. Our perspective on history changes. And what I'm trying to do, or what we're trying to do here, is record where we are now on where we were then. And we need to go back and do this again and again and again, so that we can see how our perspective changes. Classic one is we are fighting right now in the Middle East a war that started in 1100 as the Crusades. And the attitude toward that war has changed over 800 years. Now, the same response will be here. And I'm trying to get people who were involved to respond to this, and we do it on videotape, on video disc, and then that gets filed down at the Historic Society for some future historian who may want to look at it. We've interviewed vets, we've interviewed conscientious objectors, we've interviewed women who were waiting for vets to come home, and just this morning I got an email from a woman who was serving in Vietnam as a nurse. So we're trying to get as broad a perspective on this as we can.
Okay, wow. Boy, this is so interesting, and what a very pertinent topic to be talking about and bringing the community together with this. Tell us when all of this starts. Give us the rundown on this, Penny.
Well, it starts on September 13th at 6:30 p.m. at the Ephrata Business Center with Tom Ridge.
Okay.
And he'll be speaking about kind of what Phil was talking about, Vietnam and how that relates to where we are in the world stage now. So, you know, he's a Vietnam veteran, so it'll be interesting to get his perspective as the former Secretary of Homeland Security, and also the ex-governor of Pennsylvania. So that'll be really interesting. And if people want to go to that, all they have to do is go to our website and they can order tickets. They're free, but you do need a ticket to get in.
Okay, for seating.
Right, for seating.
Right, okay. So that's the big kickoff.
That's the big kickoff.
Okay, now the books are where?
The books are all over town, and you can also come to the library and check them out. We have plenty there. In addition, this year, because Tim O'Brien writes primarily about Vietnam, we have lots of copies of his other books as well.
Okay.
And, you know, so that you can kind of get different perspectives. In addition, we have the audiobooks for this book as well. Lots of documentaries and movies about Vietnam, and also books that were written by all of our speakers that are coming into town.
Okay.
So you can learn a lot, or you can learn as much as you want for this one. This is it spans a lot of literature.
It sure does, and you can be as involved as you want to be
Right.
too, right?
Right.
Now, is there a cost to any of this?
There's no cost to any of it.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And you can just be a part. How many people did you have involved last year? Do you recall?
Oh, it was thousands and thousands.
Well, we did oral histories on at least 40 people. I mean, that was about a school, a school in the fair, and I think we did at least 40 oral histories.
And they're still available on the website, and the new videos will also be available on the Big Read website.
Okay. Wow. So the way it works then too, you've got some book discussions and they're coming
Right.
up, and now that's listed on the website too, right?
Everything's on the website.
So the way it is it like every week then? Is that how that
Oh, it's
falls?
almost every day.
Okay.
There's
all right.
something going on almost every day.
But the public book discussions are
Right.
special times, okay.
And there are also other private book discussion groups
Okay.
throughout town that, you know, the Women's Club has a book discussion group, and Great
all right.
Books has a book discussion group. So they already have the books, and they're going to be using them during their regular book discussion groups.
Tell me about the card making for soldiers.
Yep, we're going to have an open card making evening where people can come to the library. We'll provide all the supplies, and they can write letters and make cards for soldiers currently serving overseas, and we'll make sure they get them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'd like to put a plug in if there's anybody watching this who was either in Vietnam, waiting for somebody to come back from Vietnam, or doing a alternative service to the draft. Please get in touch with the library. We'd love to include you in the oral history.
Sure, that would be fantastic. Tell us about the films that you have. These are
Oh,
great.
We have some great films, and actually something that hasn't even been publicized yet. I'm telling you for the first time.
Okay.
Is, we were doing a screening of the documentary The Camden 28. And just last week I found out that one of the members of the Camden 28 will be coming to the film screening, one of the gentlemen who was there. And he may not be the only one coming. We may have more members of the Camden 28 coming up. And that was just, luckily somebody from the Historical Society had printed some items for this gentleman years ago and got a hold of him, and he's interested in coming. So we have lots of great documentaries from all different viewpoints. That's something that we really try to stress when we're doing these kinds of community events. We also have a feature foreign film festival as well, so you can come to the library and watch Good Morning Vietnam or
Oh, that's great.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
That person she's referring to is Father Doyle,
Okay.
who was one of the leaders of the Camden 28. I'm hoping to be interviewing him on Wednesday in Camden. And we're hoping for that. Otherwise, I'll be going down sometime to interview him as part of this. So that video will be on the website as well.
Okay, wow, this sounds great. So there's always some way to connect, a website, coming to some of
Right.
these events, and connecting outside of the library and other businesses. It really brings the community together,
Right,
doesn't
and
it?
you can join our Facebook group.
Okay.
And you can follow us on Twitter.
Okay.
So there's lots of ways to get involved. You know, there's people who would never use Twitter, but there's some people who they rely on that for their news now.
Right.
So we're trying to reach out to people in every way possible in order to get them involved.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Give me some final thoughts, Phil.
I think it's critical that we document who we are and what we are and who we were, so that 100 years from now, 50 years from now, somebody can get a realistic picture of what this community was. We tend to lose touch with our past. And I think in our community we are very good at trying to retain that, and this is just one part of that.
Yeah, you're so right about that. Thank you for being with us, Phil. We're going to take a brief pause. When we come back, Titus Peachy is going to join Penny and I, and we're going to get his story. Stay with us.